Hey, happy Thursday. I don't even know what day
My
it is
favorite
anymore.
day. It's Crypto Arms Race Day.
Arms Race Day. Whoop, whoop.
Yeah.
We are back with another episode of Go FUD Yourself. JD Gagnon here. My good friend Kara. How are you, my dear?
So great. It's my favorite day. I know Hump Day is your favorite day, and then Crypto Arms Race Day is my favorite day. And today we're going to talk about corporations as part of the Crypto Arms Race. And then we get to talk about Dubai, which is like kind of a corporation. And then we'll talk about the EU and also all of Europe that's not the EU. And then we're going to like wrap up with Canada and Colombia.
So we are going on a trip around the world today.
Yeah, this is what I do because I work remotely. We don't travel anymore, right? We just have Zoom meetings around the world.
Yeah.
This is how I live vicariously.
We just do this kind of stuff. Awesome. Okay. So quick merch shout out. This is not crypto merch. I'm not going to show you what the shirt does. But if you're watching the video, Google this, ask me about my ninja disguise, and you'll see what happens.
You're not going to show them?
No, I don't think anybody wants to see my torso on the show. I'm pretty sure we're not quite there yet. But anyways, you could pull up the shirt, and there's a ninja mask. And so ask me about my ninja disguise, and then I go. My kids think it's hilarious. I think it's hilarious. Anyways, live show Monday to Friday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern. Same place, all the places that we stream to. If you're watching, you obviously know that. So just keep watching the same place. Like, share, subscribe, help us out. And yeah, let's go. All right, we are back. And today is Crypto Arms Race Day. For those of you on Twitter Spaces, we are going on a tour around the globe, sort of, to talk about some of the developments over the last few days from a global perspective, generally with respect to regulation, attracting development,
tourism, crypto tourism, I like.
Crypto tourism. I'm going to start a country that is just done with crypto. Everything is crypto.
Diamond Rock?
It'll be called Diamond Rock. Yeah, it'll be an island. It'll be great.
Yeah. So it's going to have a volcano.
Evie,
all right.
Evie's listening. He's going to join us on Diamond Rock. It's kind of like Alcatraz, you know, the rock, but this will just be Diamond Rock. The whole country, everybody can live there. It'll be great. Okay, we got lots of shit to talk about.
We're going to start with MasterCard. So I know, first of all, before we actually get into what MasterCard is doing, I think it's important to talk about how the crypto arms race is typically countries. However, that's only because we are in an outdated mindset of countries having governments and governments being the primary control and power, when in reality, we probably have more control and power from international corporations that allow us to, you know, use our money everywhere. And then
that doesn't sound very socialist of you.
It's super socialist, very no borders. No borders, no masters, baby.
Globalization.
So MasterCard's doing it. They had pulled out of crypto for a while. We've talked about them coming back in. We've talked about them in terms of stable coins. I think they're going to surpass stable coins because people already freaking use MasterCard, and people are more afraid of the government than a corporation, even though they shouldn't be. And whatever, they're looking at having dApps. They're looking at having their own ETH subnet thing going on. I don't know. MasterCard's doing it. They're jumping in head first.
Yeah, I mean, they've got the resources, and I've been saying this a lot with respect to incumbents, that, I mean, they slept on this for the first decade of crypto, thinking, this is going to pass. It's never going to pick up steam. It's never going to get meaningful adoption. And then I think they're all realizing, holy crap, our business is about to be catastrophically disrupted if we don't do something. And so we're seeing this with Swift. We're seeing this with JP Morgan, Goldman, Microsoft, like tons of these.
Didn't Cher just like straight up say, we don't need banks, and this is their backslide?
Yeah, Cher's hilarious. Like we're gonna have to have Cher. We're gonna have to have Cher on some more episodes. He's really funny, and just a really great guy. But yeah, I mean, MasterCard. I've been a fan. MasterCard is actually, to their credit, has been meaningfully dipping their toe since DeFi summer. Actually, like I remember. I won't get into it, but there's a lot of things that MasterCard has kind of dipped their toe into. They dipped in, pulled out, dipped in, pulled out, and now they're making meaningful tech inroads. It sounds like they're building a network of their own, which is a fancy way of saying they're building their own L1. At least that's
they're going to use E, but
it's an L2, I think, right? They're building.
I think it's an L2
on like they haven't released anything that I could find on technical infrastructure or any of that shit, timelines, any of that stuff.
What I thought was interesting is that they want to be compliant. And so MasterCard is much larger and has much deeper pockets than most of us. And so it will be easier for them to be regulatorily compliant across nation states than a new entrant, right?
Well, that, and they've got legal teams and corporate structures globally in all these jurisdictions. They're deeply familiar with lobby and policy in many of these countries. Like, I mean, to Chair's credit, and many others that disagree with me on the excitement around bringing in TradFi incumbents, I think there is a point to be made that, I mean, then it's just going to be more of the same, right? It's going to be more of the same old shit, protecting their revenues, and so on and so forth. And I mean, if I owned MasterCard stock or Visa stock or any of that stuff, of course I'd be concerned and I'd want them to come in and take market share. But as builders in the space, this all started, the whole space was born out of inefficiencies in the existing structures. So if all we do is layer the same inefficiencies on top of a much more efficient technology, but we don't take advantage of said technology, what's the point? Like it's kind of all for naught. So
I think MasterCard is going to push the adoption curve to cross the chasm, to cross the technology chasm, because people already use MasterCard. We already talk all the time about how Web3 will be successful when people don't realize that they're being onboarded into Web3. And that's what MasterCard's going to do.
I completely agree. And I also think that, I mean, whether we like it or not, there's going to be a bunch of incumbents. That's always the way the world works. We all say we want global adoption of crypto and blockchain. The only way to get it is with global infrastructure and massive global partnerships. That's the only way to get global scalability. Well, sure.
It's not FU Friday, but
we're not saying FU yet. But anyways, okay. MasterCard, they're making some moves, probably worth following if you're interested in kind of.
I also think that they're going to overcome stable coins, as in like CBDCs, because there's going to be so much failed onboarding to a CBDC when people are already using MasterCard. All right. So MasterCard, not exactly a country, but whatever. They're participating in the crypto arms race. Dubai is our next big one participating in the crypto arms race. There isn't like a lot of brand new news. I just thought it was kind of interesting to talk about because Dubai is a purpose-built city. And so they can decide what purpose they want to be built for. And one of the things that they're doing is trying to create 40,000 new virtual jobs by 2030. So this will allow people to continue to live there. And they're looking at actually like being a metaverse economy. So I thought this was kind of an interesting thing that we should probably touch on. There actually isn't a huge amount of crypto adoption that's reported within the UAE, with Dubai kind of being the caveats to that, with the actual highest per capita events and crypto activities in the UAE, all through Dubai.
Yeah. I've been somewhat of a fan of this. The problem that I have with this is that whenever there's like a monarchy or royalty that's in control of a nation state, I mean, they could just up and decide tomorrow that, just kidding. Or we're going to turn the tax spigots on and all of a sudden, extort. I doubt that's going to be the case. I think their business acumen is a lot better than that.
I didn't realize that the USA was a monarchy.
USA.
Bada bing.
Well,
because that's what the SEC's done. Exactly that. They're like, we're going to tax you. I'm one man.
Man, I'm not paying attention to your funny jokes today. All of that being true, let's assume. I think Dubai is doing the right thing. They're saying, hey, like we want to create jobs. This industry, we believe the industry is going to matter in the future. We want to create jobs. We want to create a welcoming environment for entrepreneurs. I mean, the vast majority of the tax base, including in America, is from entrepreneurs. So, I mean, they provide jobs and they provide tax revenues. So
important on that note to point out that Dubai is trying to attract 1,000 blockchain/metaverse companies by 2030. So you're looking for somewhere to check up.
They're well on their way, I think. There's a lot of big brands that either already have a presence in Dubai or are meaningfully exploring it. Again, just because whether we like, the way that the country is run or not, they've been clear on what's allowed, what's not. I think it's, again, maybe not the ideal environment, but it's a hell of a lot better than most other jurisdictions at the moment. So worth looking into.
Okay, are you ready to take a quick flight over to the EU? The EU. What's the primary airport for the EU? Is it Amsterdam or Frankfurt?
Probably. Well, I don't know. It's maybe Belgium, because I think that's where the EU meetings are, is in Belgium.
The EU. Clearly, we live in Europe.
Yeah. Anyways, but I don't want to go to the EU. I'm just gonna stay in Dubai. It's a lot warmer and.
You're actually right. So there was the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision who are dealing with all of this stuff. But so basically we had MiCA come out, and now they're looking at a new kind of like supplementary bill. And that bill will prevent a number of crypto assets from entering the traditional financial system. And what's interesting about that is they're talking about how they might include crypto in terms of your credit score, your loans, that sort of thing, and collateralization. But not all crypto assets, only ones they like.
Yeah. So this is like, everybody applauded MiCA because they did a really good job of not being super nanny state-ish.
And then,
moments later, here we come in with a nanny state approach. They want to have their finger on absolutely every single asset, regardless of whether that asset wants to register. If they don't like its function, then it's just not going to be included. I've been a pretty big opponent to nanny state when it comes to investments. Ever since the proliferation of the internet, the reason that the accredited and sophisticated investor, I'm serious, the reason that the accredited and sophisticated investor requirements were in place once upon a time was because your access to information was significantly limited unless you had enough assets that you had proper advisors that had said information on exotic products. Today, your advisors probably have less information, less knowledge than you can get simply from GTP. Not that GTP is the answer. It's often wrong. But the point is that you have access to the vast majority of the information. And why would we think that humans don't have the wherewithal to make their own decisions when it comes to where they want to invest their money? If somebody wants to start up a stupid business that's doomed to fail, we don't stop them from doing it. They can invest $1 million in, I don't know, pooper scooper.
Right, but they can't take out loans if people don't believe in their business, if they don't have a business plan. And this is kind of the same. We're not necessarily going to support or recognize that you own a token we think is stupid.
Yeah, we could probably talk about this for a long time, but I
don't agree with it. It's just, I don't know. I see.
I was a big supporter of MiCA, to be honest. Just the fact, hey, they came out with some guidelines. They're not that shitty. There's obviously some things I don't love in MiCA. But the vast majority of it, I think, is manageable. I think there's a path for entities to maintain compliance in the EU and eventually in the UK if they get their poop in a group.
So talking about being a nanny state, Germany has basically rejected Binance. So what's interesting is this isn't formal. It's kind of like a verbal rejection. Germany is saying, Binance, we're probably not going to go ahead with this. So that actually doesn't remove Binance from operating in Germany. Like, you can still technically invest with them, but Binance won't be able to advertise its operations in Germany or expand its operations in Germany, which I think is an interesting way to go about it.
Yeah, I think this is, like, we talked about Binance pulling out of Cyprus. I think they were encouraged to pull out of Cyprus. And then Binance turned around and went, got licensing in, like, where was that? Bangladesh or something? Like, it was like some crazy tiny country. I don't remember which one specifically, forgive me. But until they settle the accusations with the SEC, I would be surprised if any jurisdiction approved them for licensing, because the accusations are pretty crazy. I hope they're not true, because that would catastrophically impact the space at the moment. But they're pretty big claims. I don't think until you have some clarity on that, that you can meaningfully provide licensing and approvals. So this to me is, I think, obvious. I think I would be much more concerned if Germany approved them. I'd be wondering who they paid off, honestly. So I guess we'll have to see where that goes.
All right. So I don't know. It looks like, yeah, well, it looks like Germany is maybe not where you want to go with crypto, which is weird because Berlin is trying to be a crypto hub, just like Paris is trying to be a crypto hub. But, and I'm not surprised about this, Switzerland not being technically part of the EU is now being kind of spoken about as the crypto cradle and regulatory haven for crypto. So if you didn't know, ETH was actually created, if you will, in Switzerland. I've been to Zug. It's a beautiful little town. I think it's the largest town in its province or state. And it's like right on the water. It's totally beautiful. If you want to move there, do. It's really fun. But basically they have, yeah, but not as cold as other places in Switzerland. Like they have a shorter season because they're right on it's like Vancouver. But they're known within Europe as the Crypto Valley. So if you're looking to leave Silicon Valley because you don't trust the SEC and you're not sure about Berlin or Paris or Dubai, Zug is supposed to be the next place for you to go.
Absolutely.
Opinions about that?
Yeah. So Zug has actually been kind of on the radar for the last 3 or 4 years. Switzerland has been kind of one of those jurisdictions that you had to jump through a few more hoops to register in Switzerland. So for that reason, a lot of people just went kind of the Panama, British Virgin Islands, Cayman Islands, whatever. That kind of route, because it was a lot more streamlined. It was super easy, cost effective. Switzerland was a little bit more expensive, but now it's proving that Switzerland maybe was onto something when they said, hey, we have some minimum restrictions. And if these restrictions are met, then we're comfortable with it as a country and we'll support you. And I think that people are starting to pick up on that now. Switzerland is always
home to ETH Foundation, Cardano, Cosmos, and a few other major projects. The other big thing is that the government of Zug is also trying to invest in it being like a crypto valley. So they actually opened a blockchain research center with a budget of about 43.7 million USD, 39 million Swiss francs. And then
is that
there's already it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
It says allocated as in like regularly. Budgetarily.
Yeah. I mean, Switzerland has always kind of been somewhat of a financial haven. Obviously, until just recently, Swiss banks didn't report their client list or client holdings to anybody. That has since changed. A lot of it stemming after the Panama Papers and all that stuff started coming to light, and how many government officials, global leadership and so on, that's hiding money from their own countries. That kind of came out. But all of that to say, Switzerland, I mean, the vast majority of their GDP is based on tourism and finance, corporation and financial products and banking. This just makes perfect sense to me. This is them saying, hey, our primary business could be disrupted. Our country depends on said GDP. Let's work to find ways to embrace this a little bit. And I think, I'm a big fan. It's nice to see a country with well-established laws and rule of law, and a lot of corporate entities that are comfortable and familiar with how things work there. It's nice to see that relative to some of these other like super off the beaten path jurisdictions that we're seeing everybody register in, including ourselves. It's not the easiest space to navigate. So big fan.
You know who else thinks they're doing a great job is the UK. The UK has said that they're trying to also be a hub for crypto. And in doing so, they've decided to grant regulatory oversight of stablecoins and other crypto assets. It's now official. It received royal assent. I don't know. It seems like exactly the opposite. It seems like a lot of regulation that people aren't going to like, as opposed to Zug, where it's like this really open regulatory field. What do you think of? I know that you're not a huge UK fan, neither am I. So now what?
It's not that I don't like the UK in general. I just think the messaging has been very mixed from the UK. They could have just mirrored MiCA, but of course they have to do the Brexit way and say we don't want to do what the EU is doing because we don't like them. They really talked a lot about engaging their population and getting feedback and so on. I know Brian Armstrong and others have been quite positive on, working with policy in the UK. So we'll have to see. But it is quite a bit more restrictive. For guys like Coinbase, fine. Large enough institutions with big enough deep enough pockets, obviously, can find a way to succeed there. I'm just curious if this will be too restrictive, that it means many platforms and protocols just don't pursue supporting the UK. We'll have to see. I think, Canada was another example of that. They went full security. Everything is a security in Canada. And we saw a lot of entities just pull out. And then we saw some larger ones kind of amalgamate operations and start to do roll-ups and different things.
Well, now Canada's taking a little bit of a step back from their really extreme regulatory approach. They've actually, they're looking at doing more committee work. They have signed on a couple of really large companies, including Coinbase, to help them inform their policy and update it. And what I think this is genuinely is a response to America. Canada's like, oh, people aren't happy with how that's going. And we actually maybe do have an opportunity for innovation and for onboarding a number of these large groups that have already pulled out of Canada. How do we re-engage with them, since they probably don't want to go too far from America? I think it's an interesting way to go about it. They're proposing a national blockchain strategy that includes funding, it includes regulation, it includes education initiatives, it includes all kinds of stuff. There's 16 different points that they've proposed. It'll probably take a year for that to happen, but they have already signed Coinbase and a couple of other companies for a pre-registration undertaking in which they engage with policymakers, regulators, and try to impact what's already been put in place.
Yeah, I think this is probably a decent approach to this. In my opinion, this should have happened before they passed regulatory rules that eventually, but it's better now than not at all. So I am a fan of this. One of the complications that is going to arise that we just don't talk about enough is, we're all kind of focused on regulation and the arms race and all of this stuff at the moment. But the fact that there's no consistency in the regulatory structures globally is going to be problematic. So I mentioned this earlier with MasterCard, how they have, deep understanding, corporate structures, lobby, policy experience in all of these countries. For even groups like us who are pretty focused on regulation, and we have pretty deep relationships, I would say, in trying to understand what may be coming down the pike. I think it's, just from a resource and capacity perspective, there's no possible way that we could support every jurisdiction. It's just, and that will be problematic, because the point of blockchain was to create global accessibility in ways that just weren't possible before. Not the point, but one of the major value propositions of blockchain was global access, 24-hour, near instant settlement, et cetera, et cetera. And if we go back to creating the same moats that we always have in each of these jurisdictions, then it becomes if you're a business and you're saying, hey, it's going to cost me $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 a year for compliance in the UK. Fine, maybe. If it's going to cost me $300,000 for compliance in Congo, then is it worth it? Is it worth it to have, and if they have all these restrictions where you have to have people that physically live there and do all of this other stuff, that's, again, we're just going to see more of the same. We're going to see most of the large entities focusing on, the most modern jurisdictions, and that's it. And that's the antithesis of what we're trying to accomplish here, in my opinion.
Speaking of the most modern jurisdictions, Colombia is now officially working with Ripple. So we had kind of talked about speculation around this and what they might look like they're doing, and will Ripple sign, will Colombia sign, what's going to happen. And the Central Bank of Colombia has officially signed on with Ripple to test their CBDC. There is this totally pilot project. They didn't have a plan before. They're looking at peer-to-peer. They're also looking at B2B. They're looking at a variety of different things. It's not like they're launching a CBDC tomorrow. But the reason that I like this story and kind of bringing this episode full circle is I think we're going to end up with a MasterCard versus Ripple war at some point.
Hey, that could be the case. I'm a pretty big fan of Ripple in general, and obviously they're getting rewarded for their focus on this right now. Maybe we can dig into this a little bit deeper in another episode when we have a bit more time. But I just want to state it once and then
point it out when I'm right and let it die if I'm wrong. No, but we keep seeing MasterCard as already so proliferated. People trust MasterCard to some end. I think that we'll see a lot of Web3 adoption kind of like innately via MasterCard. But also, if governments are looking at enforcing CBDCs, we will see a lot of digital proficiency there. Some people are looking to kind of like leave banks, which allows them CBDCs, or leave their bad credit scores, which allows them to leave MasterCard. And that kind of sets Ripple up for a lot of success. So
completely agree. Again, love to see this. Love to see Ripple bouncing back from all the nonsense. So yeah. Anyways, all right. We got to end it there for today. Live show Monday to Friday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern. Like, share, subscribe. Help us share the love. Dispel the FUD and dampen some of the FOMO and help people make objective decisions. Kiara,
JD,
go FUD yourself.
Go FUD yourself.
Later.